what's good? It's Carson, aka Found, and today we're going to be breaking down my new song, Blossom. There's a couple of interesting things that are going on with this one. This is not a usual release for me. It's a little bit more of a modern sound, like modern trap sound. So there's some cool little techniques here that I'll show you. Overall, the song is very simple. There's not a whole lot of crazy stuff happening, so this should be a faster breakdown. So without further ado, let's get right into it. This is Blossom. So I'm going to go chronologically through it, and we'll look at the drums and the effects and all that as we go through the song. So starting off here with the main sound. Okay, so the primary component, or the main component of this entire song, is actually this cowbell sound. Okay, so this is the main sound here. This is just a bounced version of this, but it's essentially the same thing. It's just a cleaner version. But the main sound is right here, and this is actually from bounced again, frozen and bounced from another version. And the way I made this sound was essentially a cowbell that was thrown into a sampler. So I basically just threw a cowbell into here and then bounced that, like played out the rhythm, and this is more or less the rhythm. This is actually it right here. But it was a different sound, but this is essentially it. And then I bounced it, rendered it to audio, and the way that I get the pitch bend is I bent it in the audio as opposed to like doing it in the sample. So if you look here, you can look in the clip, I have it set on complex mode, and I'm literally just pitch bending the transposition here. Versus if I were to just... So it's really just a single note or a single sample that I just did some processing on, essentially some OTT and an EQ. Again, very simple. That's pretty much the entire sound. And this is just a cleaner version of that with less effects. So it has less of the EQ and the reverb. And then I just have a ST4B for some transient shaping. Kind of just tightens it up a little bit. I've got this little reverb. It's like a compressed reverb rack, and it's sidechained to itself. In this case, I'm actually just doing like a coordinate sidechain, I think. Or the sidechain is triggered from another note. So I think it's coming from here, but it's like a MIDI trigger that triggers this sidechain. So it's not happening right now. But that got a little bit of extra reverb on there to wash it out towards the end. As you can hear, it comes in, and then some filtering, and then a little bit of echo. And these are all just effects that come in and out, just to give it a little more movement here at the end. So stuff like that. So that's the intro here. We've got some drums that come in. Let's look at the drums here. We've got like a couple shadow bass stuff here. I think it's just like a hat clap loop, or it's just a clap loop. This little shaker, in-styler shaker. And then some of my own stuff in here as well. This clap, and then these little like orchestral hit sounds. So just a kick layered with this impact. Got this little fill here. So yeah, just a little cut up fill. I think the full fill sounds like this, or full thing. And then I just like cut it just to the hits that I wanted. And then had this little dub echo that kind of, cool little transition. We've got these hits as well that layer with those. Just a couple of remedy, like hats, percussion sounds. And then we just got some build loops that are coming in here. I think it's like a breakbeat thing. Yeah, like a techno breakbeat loop, or like a techno loop. And it's just here it's like coming in. This ends up being one of the top loops for the drop, so we'll look at that a little bit later. And I've got this similar rhythm. Just kind of give it that nice rolling sound. The main kicks and stuff that are happening here, we've got this kick. Just one of my kicks. And then some build. This decap snare with a nice little clap over top. And processing all this is super simple. It's essentially saturation EQ. That's what it boils down to. I'm using a couple different plugins for each thing, but this is, you've probably seen this in my other videos. It's a Fuzz-a-Me. It's essentially like a souped up saturator or clipper. It's okay. It's not great. I don't really use it that much anymore, but there's that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just the whole thing here is super clean and intentional, right? So all the sounds that I'm using, I made sure to pick the right tones and the right sounds for those, and try to use as little as I could to still get the same sound, as opposed to layering like 10 different clap loops or whatever. So trying to be a little more intentional with sound selection. And then looking at the mains, we've got that we already talked about. This cool little like distortion thing. I think what I ended up doing is took this and basically did on resample mode, had the mains soloed like this, and then did a redux. So kind of you just do a bit crusher, like a redux like this, and then take the bits all the way down to like 1 or 2. And how it breaks up like that. And then resample that to a track, which I did here, and then just cut in parts that I liked. So the end of the phrase example. And it's just kind of a nice little ear candy. Cool way to add some texture that is very like characteristic or specific to this sound, because it's made from the sound, right? Going in here. We've got, and then, so this is again the like clean cowbell, and then we've got the like main big cowbell sound that comes in. So really just straight into a build here. There's not a whole lot going on. I've got this little granulator sound. I don't know, this is something that I recorded out and rendered. I don't know where it came from, to be honest. It's probably the drop, honestly. It's probably the mains from the drop. And then I just threw it in a granulator. Got a little pitch corrector here, like a little bit of auto-tune. Yeah, again, just more texture to fill out the spectrum, because I'm trying to keep it very simple. Here without the vocals. It's literally just that Reese and some filler. Cool. And then looking at, we can look at the Reese here, this sub, which kind of carries through. This is just a basic Reese rack that I have, where I just have a couple of my favorite Reeses in a rack. They're all serum Reeses. Some of them are my presets, some of them aren't. This is an ESW Reese. So yeah, this is the ESW Reese. Sounds great. I did a little bit of cleanup, I believe, here in the low mids, and that's pretty much it. Like, this is essentially just some reverb and filtering that comes in here and there for automation. But I've got this roar, gives it a little bit of drive, and that's pretty much it. Like, very simple Reese, just something warm and kind of carries the low end. And then during the build, I've just got these little pitch downs, same note, but then you can hear how I'm drawing in this little pitch down every couple bars. Just give it something a little bit more interesting as opposed to just like a static note. But I also didn't want like a progression there, so that's kind of why I did that. And then as we go in here, we've got this little drop down. And this is made from a rack from my friend Affinity. It's basically like an operator, and it just creates a little pitch down for you. I rendered it out to audio. Super simple. Just a clean pitch down. Again, a little bit of that texture comes back here. Looking at the effects, we've got my little riser I built, which I believe have either already shared it or will be sharing this riser in my Patreon. It's essentially just an operator with a few things mapped to the macro, and it's all Ableton stuff. So if you have Ableton, no third-party plugins, very simple. Another couple risers. It's a cool little like stutter thing. One of my old like voice shout things here in context. A little more texture, right? Without it, with it. It's like nice little, fills it out a little bit. Got this impact as well. I didn't want any of the low end because I've got a lot of low end here from the sub and from the kick, so kept that out. And you got this guy, essentially just a noise riser. Got this little hit and this hit, and I cut it there. Cool. Let's look at the vocals before we get into the drop. Vocals there's a little bit more going on here, but it's essentially some splice loops. I've got this guy, which is like a little hype vocal. Something from a green room pack. I just chopped it up and did cool things with it. Processing is simple. Just some OTT. I've got a vocoder on it to clean it. Give it a little bit of a more robotic tone, which is what I wanted. That's pretty much it, and it just kind of carries throughout the song. This is the main vocal. So again, super simple, without anything. So I'm basically just making it bigger with EQ and saturation and compression. Super simple. Again, not trying to overthink anything with this song. There we go. And then the actual processing here, I have this reduce ambience. This is a built-in thing in Ableton. It basically is like a noise reducer, noise gate. Just kind of takes out some of the, I think there is a dry version of this stem as well, but I liked some of the processing they had on the wet, so I did that and then used the reduce ambience as opposed to just using the dry stem. That was just what I decided to do here. Let's look at this a little bit more. We've got a UAD distressor, so just a little bit of compression, like dirty compression essentially. Quite a bit of gain reduction, but this plugin sounds good when you send it hard, so that's what I like doing. This and the LA2A are my go-to for vocals. I wanted something a little bit dirtier for this, so I went with the distressor. A little bit of de-essing, clean it up. Just clean up the top end a tad bit. I've got this little effect rack. So this is just the echo, it's a reverb. That's it, without it. Just adding my own echo and reverb to it. A little more space. Got Saturn. Transformer sounds really good on vocals if you want a certain thing. Tape is cool. It kind of flattens it a little too much for my taste. Transformer is like an in-between of tape and tube. So it gives you a little bit of the texture that you get from tape, but it's a little bit cleaner like tube is. It's kind of like the halfway point. So I like Transformer a lot for vocals. I got shifter here. This is just doing a little pitch shift at some point. Here it is. You know what? I guess I don't use it at all. So no, plugin's not being used. So got this delay throw at the end of certain things. You can hear that little dub echo there. Nice little roar, just saturation. I turn it up at certain parts, so it's a little bit heavier in the drop, so the vocals pushed a little harder there. some reverb, which is what you heard here. Give it like a nice little reverb throw. Black box, just a analog saturator. Sounds really good. I like to use it for the air mode. Oh wait, hold on, let me get back. There we go. I like to use it for the air mode a lot. Just turn on air and then boost it up a little bit. I don't really usually use this part, so I'm really just adding a little bit of high end with it, but it sounds really good and very transparent. That's why I like it. And it's kind of like a harmonic saturator or exciter. And then just some, like I said, EQ and saturation and clipping, a little bit of clipping. Here I've got a little bit of drive from the saturation, sending it into the clipper. So it's chopping it off there. Control the dynamics, a tiny bit of OTT, and then a little cleanup EQ. Really just pulling back on that 2.5 area just to kind of make it a little bit easier on the ears. But that's it. That's the main vocal. I don't think there's really anything else. I tied a couple different stems together to create like the overall sound, but I knew, even though I don't know the lyrics, and I'm pretty sure it's Nigerian is the language, I still could hear like, all right, this is the part I want to be a chorus. So I think it's important, even when you're doing something like this, it's more of a vibe as opposed to like a song, like a written song. I think structure is still important. So you'll notice that like I still have an identifiable chorus, verse, and all that. So I was tried to keep that the same. So like right here is the main chorus, but then I've got this like verse basically, and all these things are playing during what would be the verse and the chorus of the song. So keeping that coherent helps a lot with the structure. And then we've got little other vocals. It's from a similar pack, just doing cool little stuff. This has got added into the song way later, right towards the end of making it. I needed something to kind of fill it out a bit more. You can hear without it. With it. Especially right here. Without it. You can hear how it just added that extra little bit that the song needed. So glad I found this. And this was just digging through Splice for like hours, and then I was like, that's the sound. So I was very close to recording something myself because I just couldn't find what I wanted, and this ended up being it. It's reverse swell. This is just some effects that I printed to audio from this, and then reverse swelled into the vocal. Doing other stuff like that here with more effects. Printing it out, doing a little riser, as opposed to doing it on the main channel, just keeps it a little bit cleaner. Some little altar boy, the drive knob pretty high, and just gives it some nice texture, right? And this is how you turn a very basic Splice loop into something that sounds like a song, right? You give it these extra little additions, and now you have something that sounds custom tailored, but you know, I didn't just drag and drop the loop in. I did some extra stuff to make it fit my song. And that was it. And I tried different vocals out as well, at like something with actual like English lyrics and everything, and it never captured the vibe that I really wanted, that this I felt like really did. So even though I don't know the lyrics, I don't know what this means, it's captured the vibe that I wanted to capture. So that's why it went with this. Some other stuff on the vocals, and these like little shouts here and there. Nothing crazy. Got this little guy. Again, like a little drone. You can hear with just another layer with the overall vocal. Had this LFO on this guy here. It's cool, like makes it sit nicely with the mix. So all that kind of really helps fill out the drop, right? Give it a little bit more of a melodic edge. All right, and let's look at the drop drums. So this is the main kick here. I've got my kick 9, which I don't know if I've shared the sample yet. It'll be in one of my sample packs if it's not already. I drop a sample pack basically, or a mini sample pack, the first Tuesday of every month for my Patreon. And this is available to anyone who subscribes to my Patreon. And it's roughly about 20 samples. If this isn't in one of them yet, it will be in one of them. But this is one of the kicks. Did a little bit of post-processing on it. Got a little bit of EQ. This is kind of like my go-to for a lot of these sounds, for like my drum sounds. It's basically just Ableton's drum bus with these settings. I just usually throw this on and that's pretty much it. Sometimes I'll dial in the trim or the dry wet, but this just works really well to kind of push the sound a little bit. So you can hear I just kind of pushes it a little more into clipping, gives it a little more aggression, which is what I like. All this is like automation stuff, so like band pass and filters, stuff like that, so nothing crazy. The main snare is, we got a couple different layers. So we've got this guy. That's the main sound, I think. This is actually a shadow bass snare. So I don't normally use, I like to use my own kick sample or my own snare samples for this, for my stuff, but in this case I thought just fit the song really well, so I went with this guy. Got some additional processing though without it. With it, it's a little bit like 1% snappier. And then I've got the layer. This is an old snare of mine that I made with Vital. I've done other videos where I break that down, so I won't do that here. But it's essentially the same thing, copy pasted, and I took some of the highs out. And then I've got it side chained to that original snare, so that snare is triggering this with MIDI and ducking the transient down. Then we got, that's the kick. This is like a clap, basically, like a snare clap. And then same thing, ducking that transient. So with it, all together, without, just like a tiny bit more meat to it, right? And it also makes this snare now something that's mine as opposed to just a shadow sample snare. This is how you kind of put your stamp on sounds that anyone can use, but now this is something that sounds like me. Let's see what else we got. Those are the main drums. Oh, I do have this other snare that comes in. This is the third layer. And this is that like more tonal thing that comes in the back half, so you can hear. It's like, and this is a Remedy snare, but I'm doing some kind of wild, this is a lot of how I used to do a lot of my like tonal stuff. You basically just find something that has a cool sound to it to start, and then you just process it like with a really narrow EQ. So, oh wait, let's get just this guy. So that's the original snare with this. So what I'm doing here is, we'll go step by step. I've got a ST4B. I'm cranking the ever-living shit out of the transients, and then I'm doing it, I believe, again. So yeah, just copy pasted. And you can hear that without. So really kind of making it super aggressive there. And then several rounds of OTT. Again, squashing it even more. I'm trying to get it really tight. And I could do this with like getting the ADSR or the envelope right for the actual snare. This has a different sound to it, and I wanted that squashed, very in your face, but very tight sound. Throw a reverb on it. And now we've got the tail, but it's like that airy tail that I wanted. I wanted the body to be very tight, but then an airy tail. Got a gate, and basically just tightening off that tail a little bit without having to render to audio and cut that. I can just do it with a noise gate. And I'm sidechained with the actual original thing. So that's what's triggering the gate. And then I can very quickly like dial in how long I want it. got an EQ. This is where the tone comes in. So basically what I normally do is I find the key of the note that I want, whether it's the tonic or the fifth, whatever. I think that in this case it was a fifth. And I'm just pulling that out. I'm just doing like a bunch of different boosts here, so you can see like the 8 and everything. And very narrow cue, just to pull that tone out, and then throw it through a saturator. There it is. And usually I would even do this several times. I don't think I needed it this go around, but I would do like several stages of this EQ. So it'd be like really pulling that out even more, and it gives me that super metallic sound. Whereas, but I wanted it to be a little bit airier and less like full on ISO metal sounding. So that's why I opted for just the first round without these OTTs actually. So a little bit airier. And then shaper box to shave off that transient. And that's that. And then all together with the snare, and you can hear how it all layers nicely. So it's like my take on like that ISO metallic tonal snare. I've been doing the way he does it like for a few songs, and I was just like, I want to try something a little different, and this was kind of like an airier take on it, which I feel like fits the song better. And then let's go to the main percussion. So a couple little cool things here. I've got this nice little texture, like, I don't know, there's that's just a thing, but there we go. And this is just, I think the full loop sounds like this, but I like parts of it. Very cool loop, very textural, right? And also a little bit more like, in that Afro house-y kind of like tribal vibe, not tribal, but you know what I'm saying, like that kind of Afro vibe, but a little more digital. So I just chopped out parts of it that I liked. And then we've got this guy, again, that little top loop, a little too high on the highs here, but it sounds good in context, but on its own sounds a little harsh, but it works. Got some other top loops. Just my go-to Allison Hat 2, but this time I layered it with another thing. So a little bit more sheen to it. We've got this guy, nice little whip. That just kind of like suctions right into that snare hit. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we got this guy. So yeah, just a couple different top loops. I'm not really doing a whole lot of drum programming on this. It's really just layering these loops intentionally. So instead of just like having a bunch of loops stacked and then all that, I'm just kind of picking and choosing which parts of the loop I want and then layering them intentionally. We've got the fill here. Just kind of this cool snare here. But then I layered it with this sound. It's like a hyper pop snare or something. Oh, you know what? This is actually a ripped Skrillex snare. And then I just layer these together with a little kick sample at the end. That was kind of cool. And then that, and look at this guy. And all together. Cool little fill. And then it picks up a little bit more. We have another loop that comes in. I'm a big fan of doing like techno top loops, or like those groovier top loops that you would normally find in house or techno music, but then mixing them with trap. I think it's a really, really cool sound. I know a couple other people are also starting to do this. I felt like I just stumbled upon fire when I figured this out like last year. So it's definitely a cool sound. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more of it. With this, right? It's very, very groovy, but still trap. You know, it's a very cool sound. So yeah, I've been doing that a lot lately. I think that's about it for the drums. I mean, you got same fills here. It's all about cutting up these loops in intentional places so that it feels, you know, more performed and not like I just threw some top loops in and called it a day. I could also, I mean, I used to go through and reprogram these with my own samples, but these samples sounded so good, like they just fit the vibe of the song. I didn't want to create extra work for myself, so I just made do with the loops themselves and chopped around them. Let's look at the mains for the drop. I already kind of talked about the main lead here. And then everything else is essentially background stuff. We've got this little guy here. I'm doing some pitch shifting that comes up, or frequency shifting. And then I got this cool little corpus that gives it a little metallic ring to it. Thought that was really cool. And it's this cool little riser that goes throughout the drop. And then some other support stuff. We got this guy. I don't know where this came from. I think it was maybe like an old 90s sample pack or something I found. So there's that, and I'm just creating another little background element. I love these drones and drops. Like, they just sound really cool and they help fill things out. And then we got this little like guitar feedback sound. Little things here and there that don't, they just add like context and space to the drop. So it's not just like, you know, barren sounding. If I were to take all this out and then listen to the drop like this, right? So cool. But then you take this. And it just gives it like a little bit more context, a little bit more like something to listen to. And it kind of it just makes it feel like it lives in a space as opposed to just a dope like demo track drop. So that's the idea there. A couple other things. I've got these little things here. It just kind of plays in here and there, and that's layering with this guy. And these are all supporting elements to the main melody, right? So that was established first, and all these other things just come into stack. Instead of doing like a counterpoint type of thing where it's like goes with the melody, I'm just doing everything to support that main melody because I really liked what I created with this. I thought it was a really cool sound, so I didn't want to overcomplicate it and make the drop kind of hard to listen to. I just focus on that. Everything centers around that sound. It exists to bolster that sound. Same with that, and then I had this little laser effect, and that's just really kind of give it some attack. Yeah, everything you can see is like chopped in and around our main sound. This guy, and bring in some extra wobble sound. Essentially, just like a distorted version, I think, of one of these, and then I just rendered it out to audio, and then did some severe like high passing just to get the high end, and then did this like flutter. A little more texture. Kind of makes it feel like the bass is crunching it up, which is a cool sound. That's pretty much the drop. Like, there's not really, I mean, we'll look at the sub, but the sub you'll see is very simple. I'm not doing much here. We've got this little hit here, which I believe is one of my sounds. Oh, nope, it's not. So this is a preset from Splice. I don't know what which pack, but without any of the processing. It sounds sick already, so I just made it a little bit bigger. And I don't know how much I changed this preset. I think this is pretty much how it sounds, but I'm not positive, so I could have changed it quite a bit. But I think this is pretty close to how it originally loaded up. And then we've got this little echo, and then that echo falls apart with this redux, so it doesn't have a long tail, just kind of like distorts out here, automated in the dry wet. And then we've got, again, just like a channel strip, so just some EQ and compression just to take off some of those highs. And the sub itself, super simple, literally just an operator with like a third harmonic here, and that's it. Push it into a limiter, and as you can see, very clean. not really distorting it. I've got some attack on it, or like a pitch envelope a little bit, but not much. And it's got a little bit of pitch bend in it as well. And that's pretty much just mirroring the melody, right? But that's it. Like, sub is super clean, super simple. That's what I wanted for this. I wanted a very clean, like kind of driven sound, but I was getting all of that distortion, saturation from the mids and like the mains as opposed to the sub. And then let's look at the effects for the drop. A lot of the same stuff. We heard this already. This little impact. And then I've got some effects here and there. This guy. Yeah, we've got a little riser out. Similar to this riser, but it's just got 2 notes on it. Creates just like dissonance, which is really cool. You can see it here with these 2 tones. Kind of a Skrillexy style riser. I thought it was really cool. Very clean, cuts to the mix very nicely, doesn't muddy things up. And then coming out of the drop. Cool. So that'll do it for this breakdown. Thank you again for taking the time to check it out. Blossom is out now, so make sure you go run that up. Fun little tune for me, like Afro House meets trap. So it was a good time. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is probably the shorter version. If you want the full version of the breakdown, including the second drop and all of that, where I go over like the hard style sounding or raw style sounding kick, the full video will be available to my Patreon subscribers. And if you are subscribed to my artist tier on Patreon, you will also be getting this project file. So everything in here that you see in the breakdown, literally the project file that I bounced the master off with all of my mixing and mastering on it. You get that in the artist tier. So thank you again to everyone who subscribes to me on Patreon. Definitely helps, and I'm glad I get to share some of what I know. Thanks for stopping by. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.